Welcome to Drinks in the Library, the only library where drinks aren't just allowed, they are required. I'm your librarian host, Gigi Howard, and each episode I'll be interviewing a guest about a much-loved book that we will be pairing with a drink for you to enjoy along with us or consider for your next book club meetup. As always, stay curious and support your local library. Hello, Libration Nation. This week's book is The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari, in which Robin Sharma tells the story of a high-powered lawyer who trades his fast-paced life for spiritual enlightenment in the Himalayas. This modern fable blends personal development with timeless wisdom, offering a roadmap to finding purpose, balance, and joy. Today I'm joined by Dr. Meghan Waldron. She is a lifelong dreamer, writer, and educator who believes every student has a story to tell. With nearly 2 decades in K-12 education and now in higher ed, she helps students find confidence and joy in writing through reflection, creativity, and honest feedback. Meghan recently earned her ED in Educational Leadership from VCU. When she's not teaching or writing, she's out adventuring with her sons. All right, and our drink this week is called a Fountain of Youth cocktail. Now, the book talks extensively about the fountain of life, which is essentially water, and as a huge water drinker, I say stay hydrated, friends. But for a more adventurous summer cocktail with its bright notes of lemon and elderflower, the Fountain of Youth is a perfect treat. So, cheers. All right, let's get to it. All right, so Meg, thank you so much. I'm so excited to be with you today. And we're talking about The Monk Who Sold His Ferrari. Yes, by Robin Sharma.
Sharma, yep.
Yeah, and so I started off like, who were you when you read this book?
So I read the 5 a.m. Club first.
Is that his other book?
That's kind of like his more, I guess, well-known book. So I read that first. And similarly, my background, I'm an English teacher. So the writing, like, every once in a while, can get a little cheesy, but I think the messages are there. And so I'm a lifelong educator, but I am now in an advising role. So I work with students who are applying to extremely competitive programs, and there's a lot of rejection, and there's a lot of pivoting and parallel planning. And so I really started thinking, as women in our 30s, 40s, 50s, like, I think people kind of don't have parallel plans. They just kind of stay where they are, and that's fine. But I think a lot of times when I talk with other moms or other coworkers, they're like, I'm sick of being a teacher. I'm tired of doing this, but I only have 10 years left. And I'm like, 10 years, it's like an eternity.
Yeah.
So when I'm talking with students every day about parallel planning, I'm like, what am I doing that's like, am I doing what I want to be doing? Am I setting, my role model to my sons to continue to have like that growth mindset? So when I started reading the 5 a.m. Club, I have MS, and my MS was finally under control. And I promised myself that when it was under control, I would walk the Camino in Spain and Portugal.
Yeah.
But I needed to get in better shape, and I needed to like set a goal for myself so that I would actually do it. So I started a walking club in my neighborhood, and I wrote on our neighborhood Facebook page, like, hey, who wants to get up? Not at 5 a.m. We did 5:45. And like 100 people responded, which is pretty common, I think, when you throw something out there. People like the idea of it. But there are like a solid like 10 people that for like the last 6 months, we get up every morning and walk. Some walk like a mile, some walk like 3 miles, but everyone's kind of there for different reasons. Some homeschool, some are retired, some are in the middle of a divorce. So it's really an eclectic group. But what's cool about it is that like it's a great way to start the day. And I think, so the 5 a.m. Club kind of had these like little nuggets of like, hey, try these things. And so that was one of them. And I was like, all right, I'm going to get up and start moving. And I think it kind of just evolved into other things. And then this book was the follow-up. And I read this right before I went on the Camino. So that's why I chose it to talk about.
Okay.
That was a long-winded answer of how I got to that book.
Yeah. I wanted you to give you the opportunity to tell everybody what the Camino is. Because I know what it is because I've seen the movie.
The Way.
The Way, yeah.
I've actually never seen The Way, but I was like, I'll watch it when I get home. Yeah, so the Camino there are 5 main routes that go to Santiago de Compostela, it's essentially a pilgrimage that they carried St. James' body when he died through the woods, through Portugal, and to this chapel in Santiago. So people have been going for hundreds of years for various reasons, some religious, some spiritual, some fitness related. But for me, I always wanted to walk the Appalachian Trail, but I realized at this stage of life, it's not probably the most pragmatic thing to do on my own. And I have a really awesome mentor from high school I taught at about 10 years ago. And she won the REB award, and she chose to go on the Camino for 40 days with her daughter. And when I was home ill with MS, about 6 years ago, I had a freelance job where I was writing about people who kind of push limits. And I wrote about her walking the Camino. And it was so inspiring. And she's just such a cool person. So when I decided for myself, like, I'm better now, I'm going to do this myself, I wrote to her and she's like, I'm going to go with you. And so she's 70. She's turning 70 in July. So she walked it with me. And it was so awesome because she's an absolute powerhouse. And I went and met with her like 6 months ago. And that was part of my motivation. I'm like, I cannot have Wendy outwalk me. She's 70 and I'm 47. So we did it together and it was awesome.
That's truly inspiring.
Yeah, it was really cool because she had the knowledge, but she's a Quaker. She's like totally free spirited. I wouldn't call myself type A, but I'm probably like a B or a C. And I was like, hey, we got to book these places. And she's like, nope, you just go. And it all unfolds where you're supposed to stay and how you're supposed to get there. And that was like a huge leap of faith for me to do that. Because a lot of people really have it like planned out down to every meal and every detail. Yeah. But we did 2 days in hiking in Portugal. And then we did about 8 days in Spain. So about over 100 miles backpacking, carrying like 20-pound packs, which was hard for me physically, but it was so inspiring for me to be with her. As I said, she turned 70 in July. So that was a huge motivator.
I am thinking about the book and I'm thinking about because I've now having read it and thinking about you earlier talked about growth mindset and how so your story with the Camino, how it ties into the book. So do you want to walk us through like the story and what is this about?
Yeah. I mean, I think it's about a lot of different things. And like you, I listened to it on audio. My husband is awesome. He was an IB English teacher and he says that's not real reading. So I had to go back and like... I'm
very like pro audiobook as a librarian. And I'm very like,
I just think it makes more sense for me. I listened to it on my way into VCU. So for me, I can like listen to a chapter here and there versus like, sitting and reading. Mm-hmm. But yeah, I mean, the premise of the story is you have this really overextended lawyer who cares about materialistic things. And he literally basically collapses and dies in the courtroom and quits his practice and they never hear from him again. And he's moved off to the Himalayas, to live with the sages of Savannah and kind of comes away with these like 12 principles of how to live like a more meaningful life. Mm-hmm. Again, as an English teacher, there are parts where I'm like, oh my goodness, the writing. But but I think the stories that Sharma says, I think his writing's actually a little bit better in the 5 a.m. Club. But there's so many great like one-liners that I kind of like highlighted and I thought about. And I think some of them we probably do naturally as educators and thinkers and people who are kind of like self-reflective. But I think it was just a good reminder of how to be more intentional. So he had these pearls of wisdom that he imparts on his mentee who is, kind of going down the same path of just doing the thing every day that he doesn't really want to be doing.
Yeah. And so he goes to the Himalayas and he comes back. His name is Julian.
Right.
And his mentee is John,
yes.
I believe.
Yes.
Yeah. And so he leaves and he's 50 years old and he looks 70.
Yes.
And he comes back and he's still like in his 50s, but he looks 30.
Right.
So what did he do?
Yeah, I mean, I think the main thing is that he talked about that growth mindset, like really being fine with who you are internally, and that's going to impact the external. And I think obviously that was probably exaggerated in a metaphor, but I think we've all seen that in real life when people stress does terrible things to us externally and internally. And I'm sure everyone has fallen victim to that at some point during their lives. So I think in the story, it's just a reminder to be intentional, in terms of like how you spend your time. I think a large piece of it is time management. Like, you have 24 hours in a day. How are you divvying that up to like make the most of the time that you have and with the people, that you want to spend time with and things like that. Yeah, so there's multiple principles, but I think time management was a big one. And then just the intentionality of like making choices that are going to fit what you really want to do and not just what you feel like you have to do.
Yeah, and going into that, do you have any specific like one-liners you wanted to bring to us today?
I mean, there's so many, but all right. So he talks a lot about like this garden and like pruning the garden. And Julian says, the sages taught me that on an average day, the average person runs about 60,000 thoughts through his mind. What really amazed me, though, was that 95% of those thoughts were the same as the ones they thought the day before. And I think that really resonates. I think a lot of times we forget that we control our narrative. And so the things we worry about or the things we stress about are the same things day in and day out. Mm-hmm. So I think that was a big takeaway.
Do you think, have you been able to enact that principle in your life? Because that is harder to do than to say.
Yeah.
You know, that was one that stuck with me too. So I've been trying to control my thoughts instead of having read this.
Yeah. I've tried to do like little things to really figure out, you know, what that narrative looks like. So I was a teacher for almost 15 years, a classroom teacher, and I loved teaching. And then our county went through really terrible book bans. And for me, that was like my red line. When they came and took the books out of my classroom, I knew that was time for me to kind of do something different. And I really beat myself up over it, Gigi, because I see myself as an educator at my core. But I just kept thinking every day, like, I just don't really want to do this anymore. I want to help students. I want to grow with my students, but I can't do it like in this infrastructure. And so that's when I explored going to work in higher ed. So I was still able to take those same, I guess, attributes that I had teaching, but to kind of put them in a different arena. So I think, you know, for me now, like when I wake up, one of the first things I do is that I write in a gratitude journal, like 5 things. And some days you're not really grateful for something. So like last week when I came back from vacation and I had 7,000 emails, literally one of my things was I'm grateful for this pen. I like my purple pen because there was not anything else I could really grasp onto. Mm-hmm. So I think trying to start like with a gratitude mindset has been helpful for me, especially when I found myself in a place where I didn't want to be at that moment too.
Yeah. I'm so sorry that we lost you as an educator because of the book bannings.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm someone that's clearly very touched by these issues. So horrible.
Yeah, and I feel like I left the K-12 world, but I still see myself. I mean, I'm still teaching college level classes and I'm working with freshmen. So, I had seniors before. So there's a lot of parallels. And then, as you know, I own a tutoring company. So we work with a lot of students in the private sector that are K-12. But for me, like I just knew I had to be true to like who I am as a teacher and the topics I can talk about and the inclusion in my classroom. And my dissertation was on DEI initiatives. So I knew if I couldn't speak about those things openly and let all my students feel welcome, that I just wasn't in the right space for me right then. But I try to advocate in different ways now. Like now that I'm not in the classroom, I feel like I can actually be more vocal. We had a banned book club with our tutoring company. So we met once a month and read all the books that the county had banned. So.
Yes. All right. We'll see how it all shakes out, I guess, in the end. Yeah. Okay, so getting back to the book. Mm-hmm. Yeah, so what's some other ones that you're loving?
Let's see. What are some other ones he said? Yeah, so... Yeah, I think the other thing, I talk a lot with my students about this, just like the power of like visualizing something before it happens and kind of like owning it. A lot of people might say it's like manifestation of some sort, but he says, be patient and live with the knowledge that all you are searching for is certain to come if you prepare for it and expect it. And we see this like quantitatively, like with athletes and things like that they envision themselves winning the race. So then it like triggers muscle memory and things like that. So one of the hardest parts of my job now is that my students face extreme rejection because they're applying to programs that sometimes have like a 10% admission rate. Yeah. And they sacrifice a lot to get into these programs, to take the classes, and they really struggle when they don't hit it the first time. And I just remind them, like, if you want to be a nurse or you want to be a doctor, like, you need to visualize that. And the way you thought you were going to get there might not be what's happening right now, but there might be like another path there. Yeah. So I think a lot of times, like, not feeding into those negative thoughts that we talked about before and really visualizing how things might come into fruition actually tricks you or allows you to believe that it's going to happen. Yeah. So it ends up getting there.
Yeah. I don't know if I'm picking out something, and if I'm not hitting this, so you can just say, no, Gigi, we're going somewhere else. But yours mentioned, you've you deal with MS,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
And so I can imagine that's really trying sometimes.
Right, yeah.
So do you feel like mentally you're able to help yourself by thinking some of these in these positive mindset kind of things?
Yeah, I definitely think so. I mean, I think if we have however many 60,000 thoughts and a lot of them are repeated, I think personally that if you tell yourself every day I'm sick, I don't feel well, then you become sick and you don't feel well. I mean, I think that our mind is pretty powerful in terms of how our body relates to that. And when I first got diagnosed, I was pretty bad off, and the neurologist was like, a lot of this, you have MS, but a lot of this is how you think you should look if you have MS. And so like if your gait is bad or you're struggling, like he's like, you actually like your mobility is pretty high. And so I think like he kind of course corrected me of like, I'm like, all right, I'm not actually really as sick as I think I'm supposed to be in this moment with this diagnosis. And so I think, yeah, I mean, for me, like with walking the Camino, I really struggled. I could barely honestly eat like the last 2 days. I had so much inflammation in my system, but I wanted to finish. And I knew I was going to finish, and I knew I was going to be fine, even if we went slow, because I had seen all those pictures on Facebook of other people when they finish and what that looks like. And I knew I would get there. It might not be in the way I thought it would, or it might take a day longer. But yeah, I think mind over matter. My mom has said that to us since we were little kids. It doesn't always work, right? Sometimes you have to like plan B it. But yeah, I definitely think with my MS, it's important for me to picture myself healthy so that it doesn't always look that way. But that is the end. That is the goal, at least.
Yeah. I think it's, for me, thinking about the 95% of the stuff we thought the day before. And that really struck me a bit because like almost everybody, I deal with perfectionism, right?
Yeah.
So like every day I'm like, this isn't right. This isn't right. And like I just get stuck on these thoughts and I know it's not healthy.
Yeah.
So reading that, I have tried to rearrange my thoughts a little bit versus like focusing on what's wrong, focusing on how what's a small thing I can do in this moment to make it better.
Yeah, or what is it trying to teach you? I know like when I taught high school, I taught IB and AP English, and the students were like down to like the .01. They were like, what if I got a point for this? And so I would pour over these grades. Like, did I miss something? There's a difference between an A plus or an A and a B plus, and that could mean they're not going to be able to get, you know. Yeah. And I would really harp on it. And my husband was like, who cares? Like, no. We didn't use Power School when we were students. Like, we like holistically evaluated. But like you, I was so caught in the minutia of like making sure I did everything perfect, that I didn't mess anything up for somebody else. Yeah. And that can be really consuming.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I think now I try to step back and ask, what is, if I mess up, and we definitely mess up when we switch jobs and try new things. Like I asked, what is it trying to teach me? Because usually there's a lesson in there, even if it's not immediately apparent. But
yeah, it is. I think it is very powerful to think about. And the story talks quite a bit about like managing your thoughts and mindfulness too.
Right.
Yeah. Do you want to talk about a little about that?
Yeah. So I have always been a huge advocate of mindfulness in yoga. I just struggle with like quieting my mind, which I think most of us probably do. So I have found I'm not great at doing it daily, but there's a practice called like Sahaja yoga meditation where it's more like guided and led with like pauses, I would say.
Okay.
So that has been really helpful for me. My mind is always racing. I've got a lot of projects going. We're a blended family. We have 5 young adults and teenagers, all guys. So there's a lot of moving parts, students in college and high school and all different things. So it's hard for me to just kind of chill. But I have found that taking that 20 minutes, even if I do it 3 times a week, has been really helpful, because it's just a way for me to step back and like not worry about everybody else and just kind of focus on like clearing that space. So I do think in our fast-paced world, it is important for us to take that time, you know, even if it's not every day. I think so many, like the 5 a.m. club has this very regimented, you should do this, you should do this. This one was more just like, hey, here are some different principles that you can kind of try. Yeah. But I think people have to kind of pick and choose what works for them. But I think, you know, trying to move in some way. So getting up and doing that walking group, trying to be, practice gratitude, and then trying to practice some type of mindfulness were like game changers for me in terms of just feeling better overall. Yeah.
I want to give you the chance to talk about other specific things that you want to get to, instead of me being like, and I liked this one.
No, I mean, I think that's fine. I mean, there's a lot of different ones. Yeah. So I think we talked about this a little bit, but I think as moms, like this gets backburnered for a lot of women. But he's talking about 672 hours of inner work. I don't know, but then he leads into investing in yourself is the best investment that you will ever make. It's only when you have mastered the art of loving yourself that you can truly love others. It's only when you have opened your own heart that you can touch the heart of others. And I think, like I said, I work with healthcare workers, so nurses. I mean, these are people that intrinsically are compassionate and want to help others, but almost sometimes to a fault that they forget to like put that oxygen mask on themselves, right? Same with teachers, like, and I think it's probably my age, but it's also just the climate of education right now. You're just seeing such massive teacher turnover and burnout. And I think it's because teachers don't always have the opportunities to invest in themselves. And I've seen that in moving to higher ed. We have a lot of downtime in higher ed. Like when I first switched, I've been there about 18 months. They'd say like, all right, you have to meet with like 5 students a day and X, Y, and Z. I'm like, 5 a day? Like that's like unfathomable to a high school teacher.
Right.
But I think they also provide lots of opportunities to invest in yourself, like to go take classes for free and to do, we can do meditation during our lunch hour. I mean, that is like such a foreign concept to a high school teacher.
Right.
Or elementary or anyone for that matter. So yeah, I know for me, it was important for me to make those investments in myself. And I've often thought, how can I translate that back to all my colleagues who are still in K-12 and are struggling to be able to find that balance and to be able to give that time to themselves too. Yeah.
It is challenging because like you said, being a mom is, and it really doesn't ever end. I liked the part that he said it several times in the book, was talking about saying you don't have time to take care of yourself is like driving a car.
Yeah.
And saying I don't have time to get gas, and then you're on empty. Yeah. Right. And it's true. And it is like you will burn out. I've done it to myself too. You know, just keep going.
Yeah, pile on all the things.
And next thing you know, it could be really bad.
I know. No, and anyone that you talk to that knows me well is like, Meg is the worst at like finding that balance. Because my sister and I joke, while we're not diagnosed with ADHD, we're like, we're pretty sure we have it. And we're pretty sure it's like our superpower because we wake up just like ready to roll. But yeah, I mean, I think it's just a reminder that you're never going to be sorry that you invested in yourself. So during the pandemic, when, you know, people were like learning to bake and whatever, and I did that too, I was like, I'm going to go back to school. And I applied to a doctoral program. And I was like, this seems like it'd be a good move. And then it was fine during the pandemic. And then like the real world happened and I was still in the doctoral program and I finished last year. But that is something, you know, I remind my students all the time that like, you're never too old. I was like 45 when I went back, or 44 when I went back to school to earn my doctorate. And and I just think it's just a reminder that like, you can keep learning, you can keep growing. It puts you in different arenas. It puts you at different tables. So it's really easy to stay where you are, but it is a whole lot more exciting and a lot more opportunity if you kind of step out of that comfort zone a little bit.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, good for you.
Yeah, that's good. Yeah, so I mean, those are, I think, the big ones for me were just the idea of, you know, looking at change coming from within, really thinking about what you think about and why that may or may not impact your day. Yeah, and I think, again, just he talks a lot about their just finding lessons in the crappy stuff, too, which a lot of times we think when you're being successful, it looks great all the time, and it certainly is not linear. So
yeah. One thing I did like about this book, and I will tell you, I was so excited, but then I don't appreciate when a book or a person or anyone comes to me and says, if you do X, Y, and Z, you will get
You will find success. Yeah.
I'm like, okay, let's read it. Let's see what it is about. But I was pleasantly surprised. I think a lot of the concepts that are discussed in here are like you're saying.
Yeah.
These are good practices. You don't have to do all of them. Like pick and choose. And I mean, a lot of these are Buddhist concepts. A lot of them, you know, great religious thinking, whether you agree with it or not. Yeah. They have sort of central kind of tenet things.
Yeah, and I think, Gigi, right now, I feel like we're in such a, this is my personal opinion, tumultuous time, like politically, and there's so much negativity coming through social media and all that. And it kind of like was happening parallel to when I was trying to prepare to go on the Camino and to try to, you know, just take a pause from all of it. And, you know, my oldest son is 19. So, and I was a single mom for a long time. So I was talking to my husband yesterday. I'm like, I've never, ever been just me by myself for almost 2 decades. So it was so weird to be in Spain and not have to think about other people and just have a backpack where you have like 3 outfits and you have to like wash them in the sink. Like, because, you know, we take care of households and families and jobs and kids and students. And so like to just focus on myself was like a really weird thing because I haven't done that in like 2 decades.
Yeah.
Like we do it in little snippets here and there. So yeah, so I think for me, like reading a book like this, even if you just do little pieces of it, it's really positive. And so much of what we're ingesting every day is so negative, and it really is easy to like hang on to all those things.
Yeah.
And I'm a news junkie. I taught journalism, and I just found myself like reading and then going into this Instagram page, and it just can become really like overwhelming.
Right.
So I think what I liked about listening to this story on the way to work each day is it just was a break from some of that noise a little bit too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's very hard right now with social
Yeah.
media and just everything that's happening. And then we're so divided too. I mean, if you know me, if you follow me on Instagram, they just fired the Librarian of Congress.
Yeah.
Why?
Yeah.
Anyway. And so, you know, everybody's really upset about it, but there's only, I can call my representatives.
Yeah.
What else can I do?
Yeah. And I think part of it for me also walking the Camino, there were very few Americans there. I mean, we definitely met Americans, but it's very international. And I think what made me feel so much better was everyone you talked about what's happening in the U.S. and they were so empathetic. And so I had friends that were like, are you nervous to go overseas?
Yeah.
Like, because you also have, when people are walking, you'll have huge groups of like Irish expats, like these old guys that like have Irish flags all over their packs. You didn't see any of that with Americans. People were like kind of like laid low because it's a different time that we're going through right now.
Yeah.
But I think what really helped me and my friend that I walk with was that people were so empathetic and genuinely were like, we love Americans. We understand the values. Our students are, we have children studying abroad there. So I think it reminded me that humanity is good. I mean, most people are really kind and they get it. And I just have to hold on to like this too shall pass. But it was just a reminder that, you know, what we're going through is weird and other people know it too.
Yeah. Well, thank you for sharing that because
Yeah.
I was thinking about, you know, international travel right now. And I was sort of like.
Yeah. A lady stopped us in New York and we were just talking with her and she's like, I can't believe you're going to Europe. Like, aren't you nervous? And I think if we have that mindset, it kind of keeps us, like I talked about, kind of stuck in that negativity. And so, so reading a book like this and finding other like-minded people who understand that empathy and compassion and, you know, self-reflection and all those things are important, I think, were a good reminder for me in the current climate we're in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Same. Yeah. Do you have any more things we want to touch on from the story a little bit?
Yeah. So I think one thing that I think is just a good reminder for all of us, he says the mind is a wonderful servant, but a terrible master, and persistence is the mother of all personal change. So, I think a lot of times people, when they want to make a change in their life, they feel like they either have to like explode their life or like, you know, kind of, you know, make this huge shift. And I think it's just a reminder that like small little changes. There's a really great teacher at the school I just left, and she taught both of my sons in IB English. And her goal is 1% better each day, like whatever that looks like. Yeah, and they go on to like give an example, but it says when you're inspired by some great purpose or some extraordinary project, all of your thoughts break their bonds, your mind transcends limitations, and your consciousness expands in every direction. You'll find yourself in a now great and wonderful world. Dormant forces, faculties, and talents become alive, and you discover yourself to be a greater person than you dreamed yourself to be. So I mean, that all sounds wonderful and great, but I think, again, just that reminder of like the persistence. So if you can find something that you're grateful for, even if it's your purple pen, it's a good way to like try, you know, and I just remind my students of that too. Again, 90% of my job right now is helping people kind of muddle through disappointment. And so I think, you know, it's kind of reminding people to remember like their why and to kind of just do those little things each day that will help them get to whatever that goal is. Yeah.
I do think about things like common practices like prayer that have been around for thousands and thousands of years. And really, it's gratitude. It's expressing gratitude and thankfulness. And I think some of that is whatever, however you express it, gratitude and expressing gratitude and putting out what, like we were talking earlier about, imagining yourself as a doctor.
Yeah. And it's funny because I think sometimes those little, I guess, glimpses show up in strange ways. When we walk the Camino, we met this family from Connecticut and we walked with them a lot. Because the way it works, it's almost like if you've been to the Outer Banks, it'd be like if you started in Corolla and then you walk to Duck and you bump into people and then you see them down the way in Kitty Hawk. So you stay in these little towns and see the same people like quite often.
Yeah.
And so we walked with this person for a long ways, and Wendy said, I think he's a priest, because there are a lot of priests will walk the Camino because it's a Catholic pilgrimage.
Right. And
I was like, really? And so we just weren't sure. And then, on the last day, he told us, hey, I prayed before I went, and I'm a priest. And the people we were with, who I'm not a practicing Catholic, but my mom was a nun.
Oh, really?
Yeah, sidebar.
I have a nun in my family as well.
Yeah, my aunts were nuns too. So he said, I prayed, and I, wanted to just walk with people as like a layman or whatever. And I'm a priest, and it was really awesome. And he, by chance, had a microphone in his bag and sang karaoke, it was basically like he's from Austria, like it was like an opera version of "You Raise Me Up," and he sang it in this restaurant, and it was like so profound, and like all these people kind of came in to listen to it, and it was just this really like weird eat, pray, love moment, right?
Yeah.
And then it was funny because the Irish guys that I was talking to you about came in and grabbed the mic and sang Danny Boy, so like it came.
I would be crying.
I full circle. Yeah, but it was just like such a reminder to me of, I try not to like stereotype or say, oh, this person is XYZ, but like we walked with this guy all week, and I'm like, he's like the Monsignor of this big parish in Austria, and you just would have never known. I knew he was religious and that, but it was just such a cool moment, and he was so reflective and positive during our walk, and so I think sometimes God puts people in the right spot at the right time, and it kind of gives you that motivation you need to.
100%.
Yeah, it was really cool.
I wanted to ask you, so you've read his other book, The 5 a.m. Club. This one came out, I think, in 96?
I think
this
so.
book was written. Yeah. I don't know if you know anything else about him. I guess he was a lawyer.
I don't know a ton about Robin Sharma, to be totally honest. Yeah, The 5 a.m. Club. So I love The Alchemist, and I always encouraged especially like my male students, love The Alchemist. So that's what drew me to these books, Gigi, because they were parables. I like, motivational books, but a lot of times, like you said, they're like, go do this, go do that.
Right.
So I like the idea of like a story telling the principles. That's just like the writer and the teacher in me. Again, like we talked, like the writing style can be a little exaggerated. The characters are exaggerated.
Yeah.
They're kind of like tropes, I guess. But the 5 a.m. Club is the same premise. You have like this overworking entrepreneur, this kind of like quote unquote like bum of an artist who's not doing much of his life. And they encounter like this guru who brings them in to all these, it's very eat, pray, love-ish, different areas of the world. And they kind of, instills different practices. But the main one is like really like you're the navigator of what you decide to do. You're not like a victim of your circumstance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think a lot of his books kind of have that same motivational tone. But that one's pretty good. It's a good audiobook.
Okay. Yeah. Fine. Okay, real quick, I'm going to bring up the drink.
Yeah,
and I realized,
I know, it's been sitting over here.
I realized I did not tell you the name of it. When you came in, I was like, here's all the ingredients. It's the Fountain of Youth.
Oh, I love it. Oh, it's good. I love that.
Yeah, so in the book, I wanted to find one called Fountain of Life. Fountain of Life is water, essentially.
Yeah.
Which we probably...
We have that, too.
We have that, too.
Yeah.
And I wanted to include this. So this is called a Fountain of Life or Youth cocktail. And I think the main thing that I like that's special about it is it has the elderflower liqueur in it. And it gives it really kind of good. It does feel very herbaceous, I think. Yes. But yeah, it's
very fresh.
Yeah, fresh lemon. Mint from my mint plant.
Oh, I love it. That is so good. I don't usually drink at 10 a.m.
Yeah, so. I know. For also the listener, it's 10 a.m. So I made very mini versions.
It's happy hour on the Camino. So.
Yeah. Yeah, this is for everyone on the Camino right now. Yeah. So real quick, I want to also ask you, who would you recommend this book for?
Yeah, so definitely all my educator friends who need like that good push in the summer of why they do what they do. And I just think anybody who is second guessing their worth and how much, basically what they have intrinsically and are they doing what they want to be doing at this point in their lives. And just like I tell my students, not everything is linear. I think that's a good reminder for us also. Like I thought that I would retire from teaching, and I never thought I'd go back to school. I never thought I'd be in a university setting. And, I've had my business kind of throughout it all, but I think it's just a reminder that you don't have to just like fit into one bucket. So you can kind of like diversify and try different things in different phases of your life. So I think anyone who's wanting to push themselves a little bit, or maybe reflect on, are they where they want to be right now?
Yeah.
If so, why? And is it time for a change?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Good. I wanted to give you a chance to put a spotlight on your work and tell about that.
Yeah. So I've owned a tutoring company for about, I don't know, since my son was born. So we're pushing like 19 years.
Wow.
So yeah, we used to be like full service and do just a lot of academic remediation, and worked with students who were in the gifted world to kind of push them a little bit more into different arenas. But about 10 years ago, we've moved to fully writing. That's really my passion. Not a math person, so we've moved away from all subjects. And so we work with students primarily 3rd through 12th grade on writing. So academic writing, creative writing. We do a lot of applying to high schools and specialty centers. And now we do a lot with applying to college. So I think the benefit of my being in the university setting is I kind of know what that's going to look like. So we help students not just with applying, but also having those writing skills so when they get to college, they feel prepared.
Do you write?
I do write. So I write more short articles. I write alongside my students. I think it's important to model that. And so I write and post every other week on our website.
Okay.
Different, all different topics. The last one was about the Camino, but definitely wrote about banned books too.
Okay.
It's a smattering of all of it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, I love it. Well, thank you so much for being here with me today.
It was super fun.
Yeah, and I got to read this book. So now I'm clearing. I woke up this morning before my family.
And meditated.
I meditated.
Oh, good. Yay.
I did. And then also he talks about like going outside, and it was like a little chilly, and our porch was a mess, but I did go and sit outside and cleared off.
Yeah, and you have your rose bushes out front. He talks about meditating on the rose.
Oh,
so you're set.
Yeah, so absolutely. So I do thank you so much, and I enjoyed learning about these concepts.
Thanks for having me. It was awesome. Appreciate it.
All right. Good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for spending some time with me and my guest for an episode of Drinks in the Library. For more information about the show, you can find us on Instagram at Drinks in the Library, on the World Wide Web, drinksinthelibrary.com, or shoot me an email at drinkspod@gmail.com. Until next time, cheers.